the most intelligent young man who are here today to provide you with some really important ways to get through life. No one gave that to us before we left high school. And they'll tell you today, in case you haven't felt it yet, adversity comes, whether you like it or not. And if you don't have a way to process it or work through it, it smacks you in the face and you don't know how to recover. And so, though I know these two individuals pretty well, I don't know them as well as one of your fellow classmates. So in order to give you a proper introduction, Miss Michelle Timm, come on up.
As we all know, we are about to make a big change in our lives. Going from high school to college or work isn't always easy, but today we have a couple of speakers that are going to help us through this transition. They are only a few years older than us, but we have so much to learn from them. They're going to tell us about the challenges they faced, how they've overcome them, and as well as providing us with tools to become stronger, more resilient, and emotionally intelligent people. Please welcome my brother John Timm and my cousin Luke Timm to the stage.
Thanks, Nish. All right, so if you all bear with me, I think Luke needed to take a step out real quick. I don't know, maybe he's getting a little bit of jitters before the speech, but he should be here at any moment. Luke.
Whoa, what? All right. You're not going to believe this, John. Okay, you know that guy that our cousin Michelle sees, Chuck, something like that? I see him in the hallway, so of course, I start going after this guy. Go down the hallway, little do I know, nice little puddle there, slip. And I wake up, I don't know how long it's been. Miss Velardo, she's there. She hands me this ice pack. And I was shocked because I'm like, this is the first time in my life Miss Velardo is handing me something that wasn't a detention slip. So I was a little in shock there. And then I knew I had a grade 3 concussion when all of a sudden I heard Michelle's voice saying something nice about us. All right, that's when I knew it was off. But all right, what are we doing here?
We're talking to these high school seniors. We're here at Lourdes, we're here to talk to them about the WWHW formula, give them some insight into our stories, our background, and prepare them for this big transition they're about to go through in life.
That sounds good. All right, I'm starting to remember a little bit. You look familiar right there. What's your name?
Oh, I'm Dylan.
Dylan. How do I know you?
Nice to meet you. I don't know, man.
All right.
You dress up as Spider-Man.
Oh, really? Okay, so he looks recognized. For some reason, I just remember I don't really like him, but okay, I remember him. I'm starting to remember stuff, but okay. Keep going. What were you saying? So, why are we here?
Because this is what we enjoy doing. We enjoy helping others by sharing our stories, giving them insight into what we've learned, why we've overcome the challenges that we face.
Sounds pretty good. All right, I like the sound of that. How are we doing this?
Well, first, we're going to walk them through our downfalls. We're going to show them how we overcame our adversity. Then we're going to break down the WWHW formula and give them their own little tool set, their own arsenal to carry with them for the rest of their lives to better prepare them for the adversities that are going to come their way.
That sounds pretty good. It sounds like we're doing something pretty good. Okay. So when do you want to do? When are we supposed to do this?
Right now, man. You're up.
No, come on. Are you serious?
Yeah, you're up.
Gosh, all right. So there I was. Sophomore year of college. I was in a pregame. Friends and I are ready to go out. What do I decide to do? I reach in my pocket. I grab a bag of cocaine, put a line on the table, do that, and I look up, and I notice none of my peers are there. I say to myself, all right, must be time for me to go. And so I'm starting to head out. All of a sudden, I'm like, wait, Am I going to leave empty-handed? Of course not. So I grab a beer, crack that open on my way out. I start walking down the stairs. I remember I head up the street. I'm going towards campus where we all go out and go party. I turn the corner, 3 cops right there. And my mind just immediately is in panic mode because I've already been in trouble. I'd already gotten in trouble before school even started in football camp. I got in trouble in high school. So all these things started circulating in my head. And all I knew was that I was not trying to get in trouble again. So the cop says, come over here. I take 1 step towards him. Boom! And I just book it. And I'm out. And if you didn't know, I'm pretty fast. I could beat Dylan in a race running backwards. But I decided to run. And so I get away, of course. And what do I decide to do? Oh, let me hide out for a couple days. No, of course not. Let me go back out. That was my mindset back then. So I decide to go back out. I go out to where we party, get into one of the places, and everybody's like, you know what, we're going to this other place. I said, guys, I'm not on the list. I don't know what I'm going to do. One of my buddies says, oh, I got you. I'm getting you on the list. My friend doesn't even remember that night, so it doesn't seem like I was getting in, but thought I was getting in and waiting on the street, and all of a sudden, my friend's face in front of me is just in sheer shock. And all of a sudden, I feel a tug on my belt like this. And I just start trying to book it. Like, he's on my belt, and I'm swinging him around me like this, and he's hanging on for dear life. And I just remember thinking, I can either take this cop's arm, break through, and try to make another break for it, or just put my hands up and give in. And something came over me. By the grace of God, I put my hands up, and I called it, and that was it. And the cop proceeded to take me down, rolled me over, put me in cuffs, and I look up, and there's hundreds of my friends' my peers' faces in front of me, just like this room.
So there I was. It was the morning of September 18th, 2021. At this point in my life, I was extremely sleep deprived. I wasn't eating. I was losing weight rapidly, and I was experiencing severe anxiety and depression. On this morning, my dad and I decided to go to the gym, maybe just try to snap me out of the mental funk I was in, even though this was, brewing for months at this point. I went to the gym and I found myself in an all-out war inside my mind. It was as if the good side of my mind that was telling me to keep fighting was playing tug of war with the bad side of my mind that was telling me to give up. And for the first time in my life on that morning is when I realized that the good side was starting to lose grip of the rope in that tug of war match. I was starting to lose control over the situation, and it was time for me to get some serious help. So after the gym, I get home. My dad cooks me a big breakfast, hoping, a spread of eggs and biscuits and potatoes will do the trick. Maybe that'll make me able to eat. But it didn't work. I couldn't stomach the food. And at that time, I was like, Dad, I don't know if this is something I can keep doing anymore. I don't know how much energy I have left in the tank. I'm fighting with everything I have right now. I think it's time for me to take the next serious step. So we decided that it was time for me to admit myself into an inpatient care facility. We hopped in the car. I drove about an hour south to a hospital in Westchester in which I admitted myself into basically a psychiatric ward. I was experiencing suicidal ideation at that time. I was having really serious and scary thoughts. But part of me told me, you know what? We're gonna fix this. So we made that drive, admitted myself to the emergency room, got inside the clinic, and there I was, sitting in a secluded part of a hospital, completely homicide and suicide proof, wearing scrubs. I'm looking around and there's 20 other people from various different backgrounds, all experiencing the same symptoms as I was. And I didn't know how I got to this point. This was the lowest part of my life.
I remember up until 7th, 8th grade, I was a straight A student. I played 5 different sports. I had a love for life. But then I started making some decisions that weren't in my best interest. I started drinking when I was 12 years old. And immediately I saw a correlation between how my grades were in the classroom, what I started to care about, what I started to value. And so going into high school, The only thing that I cared about was being the funny guy. And clearly, that's kind of tried to stick with me. I know it's hard to make you guys laugh, but I'm trying up here. And that's all I cared about. I didn't care about grades. I didn't care about anything else but making people laugh, having fun, going out and partying. The only thing on my mind. So I get to high school. I started building that reputation. Going to my sophomore year, I decided to start playing football. Nothing really came of that, but I was on the varsity basketball team. And coming around to my junior year is when I really started to see success on the field. So junior year, I had this big breakout season. I started getting all these accolades, all section, all state. I started getting recognized in the area. And it definitely felt good, I'm not gonna lie. But it wasn't really built on the strong habits that I had when I was younger. And I was kind of just achieving this through some natural talents that I had. And yes, I did work really hard when I was young to get up to that point, but I still wasn't working hard in the classroom. I wasn't working as hard as I could on the field, but I was still achieving this success. So in my mind, I'm thinking nothing's wrong. And that's when my senior year comes around. And you're thinking, okay, he's doing all this partying. I'm smoking weed every single day junior year. What's gonna happen in senior year? Something's gotta happen. And something did. It just wasn't the results that you would expect. I broke 4 state records my senior year. I had a Division I offer to play football at Princeton University. All these amazing things were happening in my life. And I really believed that I deserved all these things. And I'm not saying I didn't, but at the same time, I wasn't really putting myself in positions that would have seemed like, okay, those are the things he should be doing. But on the surface, I was achieving success. So in my mind, hey, nothing that I'm doing is wrong. I'm partying like crazy. I'm smoking weed every day. I'm not doing a thing in the classroom. But look at me. I'm successful according to everybody else's standards. So I bring that same mentality with me to college. And reality started to hit. I'm at Princeton University, and I'll tell you, school wasn't easy. So I'm getting my butt kicked in the classroom, failing a course first semester, I'm barely passing. I go into football. I didn't study the playbook for a second. I didn't work out all summer. So I immediately become that guy who doesn't care, the troublemaker. I took that same mentality with me. I got arrested before school even started there, and all these things started to happen. And that's when my sophomore year, everything compiled. And that's when I ended up getting arrested for, it depends who you're asking, but 2 or 3 times. That was basically my 3rd time. So
there I was, right? I'm sitting in an inpatient care facility, surrounded by all these people that, society calls crazy or nuts or psychotic. That's me. I'm one of them now. And over those 11 nights that I was in that facility, I had a lot of time to think, a lot of reflection. How did I end up here? It's a great question. Because looking back on it, there were no clear indication or no clear signs that I would end up in this situation. Growing up, I went to Spaghill High School. I graduated from Spaghill High School in 2017. But while I was at SPAC, I was basically like the golden child. I had straight A's. I was the captain of my varsity basketball, varsity golf teams. I was heavily involved in a variety of extracurricular activities. I was very popular amongst the student body. I was known as, everybody looked at me and were like, John's gonna go on to college, and whatever he does after that, he's gonna be fine. He's got it all figured out. And that reputation held true as I went on to SUNY Binghamton. I went to Binghamton and found immediate success. After about a month of getting adjusted, I quickly made a bunch of friends. I was succeeding in the classroom. I had close to a 4.0 GPA. I was involved in the investment club. I was the vice president of my fraternity. I was the graduate assistant of a 400-person class. I had an offer as a financial analyst upon my graduation in May 2021. Right? Everything from the outside, you're like, oh yeah, John's got it all figured out. He's good. But clearly I didn't. Something was off. Something was missing. And looking back on it, I realized that, for the longest period of time in my life, my definition of success was determined by external sources, right? In the classroom. Oh, John's got great grades. He's doing the right thing. He's going to be successful. He's achieving success. He's doing all these different curricular activities. He's getting involved. But I soon realized that I didn't even know if I enjoyed doing any of those things. And that's where that inner conflict inside of me of battling between, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to like what I'm doing? Or is this just reality? And that compounded over the course of 21 years was built up a very strong storm inside of me. And on my last night of college is when I experienced my first panic attack. I was out to dinner with all my buddies, had a severe panic attack, thought I was having a heart attack, and it was something I had never experienced before. It really scared me. As the summer went on, I had persistent symptoms of anxiety and depression. I quickly was experiencing insomnia, and I couldn't eat anymore. And that compounded to the point where I was experiencing suicidal thoughts. And that got me to the morning September 18th, which I described to you earlier, where here I was admitting myself into an inpatient care facility.
Got arrested. I'm kicked out of school. They said, hey, take the year off. Luckily, I was remorseful. I was able to reconcile with them, and they came to that decision. Hey, if you can get your life on track the year that you take off, you come back to school, you get some counseling, you get some drug testing done when you get back, we'll think about readmitting you. So I go home, and I'm like, you know what? This substance stuff, it's got to stop. It's taken over my life. It's all I can think about. It's really all I want to do. And so I go home, like, all right, I'm going to go sober. I get a week sober. I get 2 weeks sober. But then all of a sudden, those friends start calling me up. I start going back to those places, and then boom, I'm right back to where I started. I'm smoking weed every second of the day. Okay, I know I need to stop. It's been a month of doing this, and I need to go back and get sober. And I just did this cycle multiple times. And it just got to the point where I said to myself, all right, this is it. I really need to reach out and get help. So what did I do? I realized that I need to get my life on track. I was struggling, and I needed to reach out for help. But why? Why did I want to do it? What was my motivation behind doing this? I was sick and tired of looking myself in the mirror, telling me, this is who you are, this is what you're going to do, these are the great things that you're going to be, and not living up to any of those things. The standards that I was telling myself I should be living up to, I wasn't living up to any of them. And so I said, clearly what I'm doing is not working. And so how did I change? I reached out for help. Right? This is something I never wanted to do. I thought the advice that they were giving me in high school, things that they were trying to tell me, I'm like, you guys don't know anything. Look what I'm doing. I'm clearly succeeding. How are you supposed to tell me what I should be doing? People in college, same deal. But I just finally had enough. I said, you know what? This is something that I clearly can't handle on my own. So I reached out to somebody I knew who's very close to me, and he got me into something I'm sure you heard of called AA. I started this AA program, and this is where I started to look at myself internally. What are my character defects? Who really am I? I started getting deep with myself. And one big part of AA is giving it up. It's not Luke's plan anymore. I got to put it in God's hands, because clearly what Luke wants to do, what Luke thinks is the best option, is just not working. So I got to give it up to something bigger than me. And so once I realized that, I was able to start putting my life in the right direction. I got back into Princeton. I started making the right decision. And so I eventually ended up getting back on the football team. I ended up doing all those things that I said I was going to do. And now I have a great job in finance in New York City. I was able to buy a place. I live with my cousin John. And so we're able to do all these things. And it's because of just the fact that I was able to look on the internal and say, hey, I do have a problem. And I know I need to change.
Okay, so kind of touching off what I was talking about before, right? I had all this time to reflect, and I had some, pretty honest realizations that I had to face. That for a large portion of my life, my perception of myself was purely based off of the perception that people were kind of putting on me. I had no real sense of who I was, what I liked, what I was passionate about. And as a result, I ended up, just following the standard course, studying finance, getting a job in finance, just doing what everybody else thought I would be good at, because that's where I was naturally talented. I was naturally smart, and I quickly found success, and I just kind of rode off that dopamine. But what was the thing that I needed to change? In the hospital, I realized that it was time for me to take control back over my life. My goal was to really figure out who I am and what makes me happy. Why? Why is this important? Because look where living up to the perception of others got me. It didn't get me to a place of happiness or a place of success. It got me into a mental institution. It got me to a place of severe depression and anxiety. So that obviously wasn't the answer. I wanted to be able to live life to a point where, I was genuinely excited about every day. I was happy about what I was working on. I was working on things that I was passionate about. I was having a genuine impact on the world and those around me. That's why I needed to have that moment of serious internal reflection and realize that I needed to change for the better. So how? Well, the first step for me was admitting that I can't do this on my own. I need support from others. I need to talk to my parents. I need to consider going to therapy. And at this point, I need to consider admitting myself into an inpatient care facility. That's what I needed. I had to be open to taking medications. And once I got out of the hospital after 11 days, I had to be consistent with therapy. I left my job in finance. I quit, and I told myself, you know what? I'm starting fresh. I had to give myself that chance. Sure, from the outside, I'd be like, all right, what's John doing? Looks like he's taking a bunch of steps backwards. But no, I was just strengthening my stance from where I was, giving myself the opportunity to really figure out who I am and what I enjoy. And when? I put myself in a position where I was forced to act in that moment. Otherwise, my life was at serious risk. And every day I wake up and I ask myself, am I living a life that I'm happy about, that I'm excited about, in which I find true passion?
So where did we go from there? So I got that help, and all right, I need to start getting my life on track. What are some positive things that I can start to implement in my life? And you'd think, okay, this dude played football. Like, he must have liked hitting the weights. No. I looked at weights, and I ran the other direction. I hated them. I didn't like the look of them. I didn't like anything about them. But when I got sober, I knew I needed to start making changes in the right direction. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start implementing this positive habit in my life. So I started hitting the weights. And that was big for me because all of a sudden I look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, I see myself changing. I see a physical change. And I know that it's also helping me mentally. And so I start this working out. I'm getting ready to go back to school. And I get back in. And I'm starting to get myself acclimated. I'm talking to my coach, hey, I would love to get back on the team. They're like, listen, you kind of caused a lot of trouble. Why don't you just get back on the right trajectory? And I'll talk to the players, I'll talk to the captains, we'll see what we can do. And so I made sure I got into school. I started to actually do the studying. I started to do the reading. And it was torture in the beginning because I never did it before. So if you're out there and you're like, I hate studying, I hate these, I'm not good at it, it's because you just have to work on it. And some people have to work on it more, yes. Some people are better, but if you just constantly work at it, it gets less painful. So it's hurting me to even look at these books, but I'm starting to study. I'm starting to get it. And I'm saying, hey, coach, I got through my first semester. Let's make something happen. And so my coach says, okay, why don't you start working out with the team? So I start doing the workouts, but I'm not quite there yet to start doing the practices. And they need somebody to film the practices. And old Luke would have said, coach, I'm not filming, coach. I got recruited to play here. I know what I can do. I'm not filming. But you know what? I said, coach, I'll do whatever you need me to do. So I ended up filming the practices, and I ended up getting back on the team. By the time junior year rolled around, I was able to get in the rotation. It wasn't the fairy tale ending. COVID ended up coming in. I know you guys remember that, and took my senior year away. But I was able to get back on the team, get back with those guys, and get back and join that camaraderie that I really missed. And so I took that momentum with me. And like I said before, I got the job that I didn't even know I would have been able to get before. And I've just been able to grow constantly since. John and I have been starting to touch streets, doing this public speaking stuff. And we have our side ventures that we're working on right now. So the amount of growth that we've been able to make because of these positive changes has been immense.
So here we are, right? Obviously, I made it through that point in my life, and I'm up here talking to all of you. Sometimes I don't know how I did it. Sometimes I can look back and be like, you know what, this is the actual work I put in. But how did I grow from those days? Right? Well, the first step, right, what I was talking about before, was that, I had to realize it was completely up to me. I held the keys to my own kingdom. I had to make decisions for myself. So when, deciding to leave that job, that career trajectory, to stop pursuing, the corporate 9 to 5, that in which the pursuit was causing me so much depression, so much anxiety, and just a complete lack of happiness. That was my decision to make. It was nobody else's. I had to make it. So I left my job, and then for about a year, I was working at my uncle's auto body shop. I was doing construction work. I started an initiative called No Man Sits Alone, in which I was, building Adirondack chairs and talking to schools. I wasn't making any money at all. Everybody probably was like, oh yeah, John will get back on his feet. He'll get back to making, 6 figures, whatever. He'll be fine. I don't make that much money. What do I do now? I live with Luke in New York City, and I bartend. Right? If you could list 1,000 jobs that John Timm would be doing at 24 years old, like if you asked my peers I went to school with, bartender would not be on that list. I can pretty much guarantee it. But that's what I do. I bartend, and it gives me the flexibility to come speak to groups like you and not have to worry about it. I'm working on another entrepreneurial venture at the moment that's coming to fruition. Right? This is what I enjoy doing. And it was only because I took that moment of self-reflection and realized that this is entirely up to me. I decide what I do with my life, nobody else. And what anybody else thinks of it is completely irrelevant. So here we are, Luke and I are really starting up this thing, Touch Streets. We've started to get public speaking engagements, and we're happy to be speaking with all of you. And that's only happened because, we decided to make the serious changes in our lives, and we put in the work to really grow and flourish as human beings. So if you haven't noticed, Luke and I have been talking in this formulaic manner of what, why, how, and when. So we have to call it our WWHW formula. This is basically the framework of the tool that we want to give you all to be able to walk away with today. It's basically a structure in which you can not only identify a change or a goal you need to make in your life, but also figure out its purpose and then put a plan in place for you to actually take tangible steps in order to achieve it. Okay, if you can look yourself in the mirror, see your adversity, see your weaknesses, and then take the action, put a plan in place to change yourself, to become a stronger, better, more resilient person, right? Then you'll be just fine when life gets hard, right? When life isn't just cookie cut and easy. And this is the formula we're here to talk about today.
What? What? What is your goal? What is it that you're trying to change? What is the first step? What is the awareness? Now, if you're not aware there's a problem, if you're not aware that there's something you should change, then you're never going to be able to change it. So the first step is identifying, okay, what is it that I want to work on? And now, you hear my story and you're like, okay, Luke, I don't have a substance problem. I study hard. I'm doing all these good things. Luke, what do you mean? What do I have to work on? I want you to start looking at different areas of your life that, okay, what is something that's just holding me back a little bit, right? Like, I know I can get to that next level, but this thing is just kind of, it takes up my time. Or what's that positive thing that I can start to implement that's going to, help me be the person that I want to be? And I see myself doing all these great things, but are my actions really following suit? And so the first step is just thinking about, okay, what direction should I head in?
Now your why. Your why is your purpose behind the goal or the change you're looking to make. Your why is extremely important, right? Because making any positive change, it's extremely difficult and requires a lot of hard work. And there's going to be times where you question yourself. You question what you're doing. You question if everything you're doing to get to this goal is even worth it. And that's where your why comes in. This is where you need to get deep. You need to find a significant fuel for this change or this goal. Because when it gets tough, you need to be able to say, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm making this change. This is why I'm going for this goal. Okay? It'll be your fuel. It'll be your motivation to day in and day out take the necessary steps that you need to take in order to accomplish your change.
How? How is your plan? So you might have your what, you might have your why. And say, okay, yeah, I have this what, but how do I get there? You know, it seems so far away, it seems so distant. Now, what John and I are big proponents for is breaking that down. We want to break that down as much as possible. Essentially, reverse engineering, if you want to use the fancy term, but just breaking down actionable steps that you can take from the final step and getting down to a step that you can take today. What is something that I can do today to move me forward towards my goal? It doesn't even have to be the action itself. It can be the research of the action, right? Like, how can I just put my head in that right direction?
And your when. Now, a big thing that Luke and I are proponents on, kind of building off that how and identifying your small tangible steps in order to accomplish your goal, right, is your when. Right, what can you do to start right now? Because what's holding you back from starting right now? Another aspect of your when, setting a realistic timeline for yourself, right? You want to keep it to a point where it's still a challenge that you're looking to push yourself to accomplish, but you don't want to make it impossible. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. And when will you know that you've accomplished your goal? You need to have a specific, outcome in mind that when you reach X point, you will know that you accomplished your goal. These are like the three main aspects of your when. So, you can change. So now, Luke and I have been throwing a lot at you. We've told our stories, we've broken down this formula, and you guys might be sitting out there and being like, all right, how does this apply to us, right? How am I going to take any of this stuff forward with us? So we've put together a few examples, real life examples, that, and when we were in your seats, a few years ago, that we didn't know we were about to face. We didn't know we were about to face these adversities, or we didn't know we were going to have to make these changes. But we've kind of broken down 6 key ones, and we're going to walk you through the formula and how we would use the formula to address these aspects of your lives.
Example number 1, learn from your experiences. I got arrested multiple times. I had a substance abuse issue, and I was able to make some change off of those experiences. And no, I'm not telling you to go get arrested, okay? No, don't do that. Please don't do that. I want you guys to make safe decisions, all right? I want you to do what's best for yourself. But at the same time, like Ms. Villardo was saying before, when I had that terrible headache, I believe she was talking about how you're going to face adversity no matter what. You can't run from adversity. You can't hide from it. It's going to happen. Life just is going to throw stuff at you, and guess what? You're going to have to try and handle it. So why is that important? Why is learning from your experiences important? Because if you're able to take that experience and say, you know what, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm going to get insight from it, and I'm going to take it as an experience that is going to move me forward and can actually push you and catapult you into the right direction and being the person you want to be. How can you do this? So what you want to do, you basically just want to sit with yourself. After something happens, is to say, why did that situation go wrong? What did I do? Take some responsibility for yourself and realize, okay, I probably did take some part in this, even if it was some terrible situation. Why? What did I do? Start reflecting on that. You can start implementing things like meditation. I'm not talking about Buddhist monks sitting there for 12 hours. Just implement a breathing practice. Start journaling. There's very simple things that you can implement that can put you in the right direction. And when should you do this? As John and I are saying, the sooner you can do this, the sooner you can start learning from your mistakes, you're going to be so ahead of your peers, because there's so many people that do the same thing over and over and over again. They make the same mistakes over again, and they don't ever come to the realization that, hey, maybe I should change something that I'm doing. It's not the outside world. It's not my teachers. It's not whatever's out there in society. It's something that I can control internally. As soon as you can take accountability and realize that is when you'll start to make leaps in your life.
All right, so I look around and I see all of you, wearing the shirts of the colleges you're attending, and that's great. I hope you're all very excited about where you're going to school, and congratulations. It's a big achievement getting into college, seriously. But for some of you, it might not be your dream school. You know, you might have applied to 10 colleges, had a few reaches. You might have, at the beginning of your senior year, you might have had a fantasy of how this year was going to play out. I know I did. You know, I applied to a few Ivy League schools. I applied to, you know, higher end private universities, but I didn't get into any of them. Right? But I had to decide to go to SUNY Binghamton. And at first, I was definitely a little disappointed. Right? But what did I have to do in this scenario? I could be disappointed and let that negative perspective, you know, ruin my college experience, or you can change your perspective. So my goal in this scenario was to be excited about going to wherever I was going to college. Why is that important? Because your perspective and your outlook on whatever scenario, like going to a college, right? Your perspective going into that situation is going to completely determine how you experience it. If you go to the college you're going to, and you're like, you know what, I'm not excited about this, like this probably isn't gonna go well, guess what's gonna happen? It's probably not gonna go well. You're gonna find ways to like point out all the negatives. So it's important to get excited about it. And how can you do this? Do some research on your college before going there. Find the clubs, find the groups, find the people that, you know, pique your interest a little bit. You know, when I get to college, like that first week, when all these interest meetings are going on, like I want to check out this, and this. Get excited about it. Get it really invested in, you know, finding roommates, getting connected with people from other communities that are attending your college. Start to formulate your friend group. Get excited about what you guys are all going to do together. You know, I'm not saying, you know, go out and party, but check out what the social scene is like there. See if you can get excited about that type of thing, what you can do on weekends in your free time, right? Get excited about the majors you could be pursuing. You know, if you get excited about all these things, and you point yourself in the direction of a curious mind, you'll find yourself in a position to be a lot more positive about your outcome. And your when. I urge you all to start doing this now. I mean, you guys, I think you had to put ink on paper last week, and you've made a lot of you made your decision, so there's nothing holding you back from starting this now.
Now, some of you might be sitting there, you're like, oh, I'm so happy I found the love of my life. I love you. You and I, forever. I promise you. Well, guess what? We were talking about a lot of adversity stuff, and you don't know what's going to happen, right? You don't know what's ahead of you. You only know what you know right now. You know, I've experienced 7 more years of life than you. Yes, I know I probably look like I'm 40, but I'm only 24 years old. Oh, it's because I'm bald. Whatever. Some of you will lose your hair too, all right? Anyway, you know, you're going to think you have this fairy tale ending. Michelle and Charlie. I'm kidding. I'm not telling anybody to break up. Let's make that clear. And honestly, Charlie, I really do think you're really you're okay. You're okay. You do okay, kid. All right? But I just want you to know that there's so much that you don't know right now. Like you think you know and you have it all planned out, but you're going to experience so many new things, and then your mindset on stuff is just going to change. So don't sit there and think, oh, I know that I'm going to have this job. I know I'm going to be with this person, because life's going to hit you and your mind is going to change. My mind changes every freaking week, every single week, I'm telling you. So I got to the point where, you know what? It's not in my control. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and see where life takes me. So why should you evaluate these high school relationships? Why is this important? Well, it's important because you care about the other person, right? Like, I know you two greatly care about each other. He's a good dude. I'll give it to him. He's a great guy, all right? You want to see what's best for the other person, right? Like, you genuinely do care about them. And you care about yourself. Like, you want to be happy as well. And so it's just going to be good to start thinking about this stuff right now. Again, I'm not saying break up. I don't want to see 15. I don't want to get a call from Miss Florida saying, we have 15 girls crying in the hallway right now. I'm going to be pissed, all right? So don't do it right now. Anyway, how? The way you can start thinking about this is by having a conversation and just getting realistic with one another and saying, hey, you know what? I do love you. I think you're great. I think you're amazing. But let's just keep an open mind on things. Like, let's take it one day at a time. Let's not put too much pressure on ourselves, right? Because we do love each other and we want what's best, but at the same time, let's just be there for each other one day at a time and just take it as that. Just have that tough conversation because, yes, I know I had a girlfriend in high school. Yes, shocking. Yes, don't be mean. Okay. But it didn't have that fairy tale ending. And I wish I had those conversations with her. And I do really appreciate and love this girl. I think she's great and amazing, but I didn't handle it the right way. I didn't handle it responsibly. I just kind of kept my thoughts to the side, and I didn't want to bring up those tough conversations. And I wish I did. And it took me a long time until I finally did. But those are the things that you kind of have to do. They're uncomfortable, but just do it. I'm telling you, it'll be good. When? Just start having those conversations before you start going to college, right? It's just good to at least be realistic about these things, being open with one another, and really, having all those deep thoughts that you might keep to yourself, being open about them is only going to make your relationship deeper. And Charlie and Michelle, you don't have to pay for that couples therapy. It was free.
Leaving home. Now, a bunch of you out there might be reading that and be like, no, this doesn't apply to me. I can't wait to get out of my house. I'm out. But before you are quick to make that, your mindset, just be careful. Because for up to this point in your life, you've come home to your parents or guardians, whoever you live with. You've felt safe and secure in your house. You've had your own bed or whatever it may be. And, making that transition from your home to living in a college dorm, it's not the easiest process in the world. For some people, it is. But some people, it's not. For me, it wasn't. And for me, the first month of school for me was extremely difficult. I went to a school, completely different new environment. I, struggled to meet friends for the first couple of weeks. And I definitely missed home. So what's the goal here? The goal is to be more comfortable living in an environment outside your house. Why? Why? Because for a lot of you, you might be going to schools that aren't local. And it's important that you feel safe in your space. You feel secure. You feel like you have the place and the setting to be yourself and feel comfortable and to be able to relax from the stresses of life and school. And how can you do this? A few little steps. So, for example, even things like posters. If you have your favorite poster from your bedroom here and you want to bring it with you just to give you a little more sense of that homeliness, yeah, do that. If you need to map out a plan with your parents so that, if I do get really homesick, maybe I can go home for a weekend. Maybe you got to take a little break. There's nothing wrong with that. To have that conversation with your parents, be like, if comes a point in time where I want to go home for a couple of days, how would this work? Am I going to have a car? Would it be okay if I call you guys and tell you? Would you guys be willing to come pick me up? Is this something that you're open to? Put those options out there, because if you feel safe and secure and taking that little leap and putting yourself in a new environment, and that you have a little bit of a safety net, then you'll be much more willing to kind of put yourself out there and let yourself really truly experience living in that college dorm or outside your house setting. And when? I don't think you need to go home and do this right now, but over the coming weeks, it's definitely a conversation and definitely something you should think about. Am I going to miss home? That's a question you should really start asking yourself. What can I do to make myself more comfortable in this new environment? Have that reflection with yourself, and you'll be amazed at what that conversation with yourself does for you in the months to come.
Mom and Dad, I'm moving out and I'm living on the streets. No, okay, you got a couple of months, all right? But for 17 to 18 years of your life, you've been living at home, listening to Mom and Dad. Oh, gosh. Listening to your teachers and administration. Being within the rigid systems of the school. But guess what? You're free! You're free! You get to go do whatever you want, whenever you want. I want to eat chicken nuggets every meal, every day. No one's stopping you. I want to watch Netflix all day. Nobody's stopping you. All that stuff is great, right? But with that newfound freedom, there you go. You can take that. One sec. You're good, bro. Have fun at Virginia Tech. So, you're going to have this newfound freedom, and you need to handle it responsibly. Something I clearly didn't do, right? I went to college. I didn't contact home one time. I remember my parents got a call from, my sister's coach, because my sister went to Princeton as well. My sister's future coach called my parents and told them about my arrest. I had no contact with them. I had no contact with anybody at school. I didn't handle it the right way. And so why should you think about handling this newfound responsibility? Because the decisions that you're going to be making the next upcoming years are going to dictate a lot of your life. And I'm not saying they're all permanent decisions, but whatever decisions you make going forward are going to impact your trajectory greatly. So you want to think about, okay, yes, I'm going to college, and I'm going to have a great time. This is going to be the time of your life. I'm telling you, I miss college. Could somebody bring me? I'll put a wig on. I'll put hair back. I can look 18 again. I want to come back with you guys because, yes, it was great. And if you're not going into college, you're going to go on and do something new. So just get excited about that new stage of your life because it is going to be exciting. But how can you handle this newfound responsibility? Yes, you're going to be on your own. But at the same time, you're not alone, right? You're making these decisions for yourself, but you're going to have resources at your disposal. So if you're going to college, your first week is going to be your syllabus week. You're going to be going through different group things, and some of them might be boring. I don't want to go party. You're meeting my guidance counselor, whatever. But these people are all going to be resources. There's professors that really care about you. Find those people and connect with them right off the bat because that's going to help you. Find those guidance counselors that care. Find those groups, the RAs, the people that are there for you. Just be in contact with them because if you ever, need some guidance in one shape, way, or form, it's going to be there for you. And when should you do this? I know the first week you want to just break free and go do your thing, but try to make those connections off the bat because that's something I wish I utilized. Is when I went to school, I had so many great resources around me, so many amazing people, but I didn't care less about, meeting those resources. So I went off and did my thing, and by the time I was trying to get my life together, it's like, all right, now I really got to start building those connections. And, it's not the easiest thing at first, and you might want to go do other things, but these are things that are going to pay off tenfold, I'm telling you.
Now, a bunch of you out there might be going, you know what, I'm going to this college, I'm going to study this, and I'm going to be this as soon as I graduate. You're set in stone. Well, I'm here to tell you that, be weary of that certainty that you hold. It might be a slight delusion. Some of you out there might just be saying it because deep down, you don't know what you want to be. You don't know what you want to do. And I'm here to tell you that that is completely okay. And for the formula I'm going to break down for this, the what, the goal, isn't to figure out who you want to be or what you want to do. That's not the goal. The goal is to find happiness and excitement and peace and comfort in not knowing. Letting life, letting God kind of just take you for the ride. Being able to capture the moments that come your way. That's the goal. Why? Because if you, in your mind, you have such a rigid definition and rigid structure of what you want to be, what you want to do, and you go into life with that closed off tunnel vision, and things don't start going your way, you're setting yourself up for a lot of pain, right? And if you're not willing to, make that change or come to that realization, that pain could compound into continuous pain and what we call suffering, right? So your why is because you should be open, you should be happy and excited about what life is going to bring you. Be willing to try new things. It's going to make life a lot more adventurous, a lot more fun for you. And how? Simply adopting that mindset of, you know what, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know who I want to be yet, and that's okay. Completely good. And you know what? Once you start openly talking about that, you're going to realize that everybody around you doesn't know either. Right? It's a constant evolution, it's a constant change that people go through their entire lives. And when you can start coming to this realization today. You're like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to study biology when I go to college. Maybe I don't want to be a doctor one day. Maybe I want to study this in college instead. Maybe you'll be halfway through college and you're like, you know what? I don't know what I want to do. This stuff doesn't really interest me. And that's okay. There's always a path. There's always steps you can take to, pivot your direction. The goal is to be happy and excited about that you come to that realization that you don't know, you may not know what you want to do, but you're willing and able to kind of go and pivot as freely as you want.
And before you start, I also want to say, for the people that aren't going to college, don't think, oh my God, this is something I need to do. This is like, I have to go to college. I know so many people who did not go to college. They're very successful. They're very hardworking. They have great relationships. They're very happy. So don't think, oh, there's only this one path and I'm not going to college. There's so many pathways out there. And at the end of the day, it's all about working hard and who you know. So yes, we're applying a lot of this stuff to college, but also take these things and apply them to whatever direction you're going to, whether that be college or not. Because I know so many people who didn't choose the path of college and are more successful than those people that did. So just take that away as well. And now, this is when you can pull out your phone, Virginia Tech. Take them out, please. Take them out. It's all good. It's all good. That was a trick. I actually called you. So that was on me, folks. Let's not get him in trouble. What's up? Oh, turn the Wi-Fi off. Turn the Wi-Fi off. Because you guys don't have the school password to the Wi-Fi, right? Just want to make sure. All right, let me know when you guys have that out. No, not selfies. You're taking a selfie right now. Come on up to the... All right, do you guys have this out? All right, guys, so I'm going to walk you through this quick. We'll take a few minutes to do this. Okay, so if you have this open, we're starting off with the what. And like I said before, the what is basically where you identify your goal. And now listen, I know you might be sitting there and you're like, Luke, I don't know what my goals are. I don't know what I need to change, what I need to do. Well, just take this with a grain of salt. We're going to walk you through it, and you'll be able to apply this in the future. So, whatever, just put anything down. What? I want to stop watching less TV. What? I want to start working out more. What? I want to start focusing a little more on my studies. What? I want to start building those connections with those people in the new field that I want to go to. Just start thinking about different whats that you can implement. You might not know it now, but as you go along, you'll start to see different pain points in your life and you say, okay, this is something I want to fix. This is something I want to change. So I'll give you a couple moments for that. So I know that wasn't a lot of time, but we're going to go into the next one, which is your why. Just kind of go along at your own pace, but the next one is why. Why do you want to make this change? Now this is where you really want to pick something that's close to your heart, right? I'm not saying it's got to be something so deep and, oh my gosh, it's going to be something that, like John, he was in a situation where he was in danger. Oh, I need to get myself out of danger. I need to put myself in a place where I'm not getting in trouble anymore and ruining my life. It doesn't have to be that serious, but something that's bigger than yourself. Maybe you're doing it for somebody else. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it, right? Just start thinking about what your motivation is behind it and try to have some strong motivation. I'll give you a couple moments for that. Yeah, and if you can't access this right now, we have this on our website, touchstreets.com. You can also follow us on the gram. We'll put that up for you to scan as well in a little bit. You're allowed to take your phone out that time too. All right, so we're going to move on to how. So that's when you start thinking about the process. How am I going to make this change? What is the first step I'm going to implement towards my goal? Think very small. You don't need to, I'm going to work out for 4 hours today. Right? Tone it down. I know you might be getting excited, like I'm going to take on the world. Let's go. I'm achieving my goals. But it works best if you just kind of ramp it up as time goes on. So think about something that, okay, I'm going to go walk on the treadmill for 10 minutes today. I'm just going to start. I'm going to push myself in the right direction. Give you a couple moments for that. I know we're moving kind of quick, but you guys have lived in the social media age. I know those thumbs move fast, so you're not fooling me. And for the last one, when? That's where you kind of set a timeline for yourself. All right, I think this is achievable in 3 months. I think this is achievable in 6 months. Set that goal and know, okay, this is when I want to do it, but if I don't get it then, it's not the end of the world. You don't need to apply so much pressure to yourself that, it's giving you anxiety if you don't achieve it in that time frame. But just start to set some sort of timeline out ahead of you. And also when applies to, when are you going to start doing this? It's why not start today? Why not use this event as a moment to push you forward in the right direction? Because one day you're going to look back, I'm telling you, you will, and you will say, oh, I wish I started making those changes sooner. And I think that to myself all the time. I wish I could have gotten it sooner. I'm lucky I got it so soon. But at the same time, there's things I wish I could have changed. I don't dwell on it, but if I could go back, which is basically what I'm doing right now. It's like I'm looking at my old self with all of your faces right now. Like that was me, you were me, you were me, you were me, you were me. I was all in those exact seats right there. And these are the things that I didn't want to hear when I was your age. And I'm sure some of you were like, all right, whatever, keep preaching. But one day you're going to look back and be like, oh, he was spitting some facts. That guy was kind of right. So I understand what position you're in, but try to take in as much of this as you can, because I know one day it will hit. And so you could submit those to us whenever you feel you're ready. You can hold on to them for now if you're not done. If you want to submit them, we will send those back to you and get them in a nice format to you. Something for you to take away.
Yeah, so kind of just before we move on to the next segment, what you're filling out right now, like the Google form, we have it built out, so we're going to take your responses and format it in like a PDF file of like a phone wallpaper. So we're going to send each of you like your own individual responses, and then you can put it as your wallpaper if you want a constant reminder of this change you're looking to make and how you plan on doing it. I think it's a cool little tool.
It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet.
So a lot of you might be out there, you're like, you know what, John, like I think I want to make this change, but I don't know how, or I don't even know what's possible. Like I'm young, like I don't really know what's out there. Like I really don't know. And that's okay. All right, what did I tell you before? It's okay not to know. But this is where references come in. References are people or outlets or media, anything that you can go to kind of expand your knowledge, right? These are very important because they'll open your mind to paths, to destinations, to goals, to adversities, to anything that your mind and you haven't experienced yet, but you can kind of intake the information and the knowledge from these references and apply it in your own way to your own life. As a result, you kind of form your own path, taking bits and pieces from people who have been there and done that. So now, Luke and I are gonna walk you through like some of the references in our lives. So here we are, we got a list. These are very entrepreneurial based references, but there are so many out there, and if you just do a little bit of research, there's gonna be plenty of people that you find. Like, number one reference for me, God, right? I know, you're probably looking at it like, John, this is cheesy. You have God in like 19.
God's a great entrepreneur.
Yeah. But God in the Bible is one of the best references out there. And it definitely got me through my hardest of times. Like one line that I carry with me throughout my entire life is like, it's in giving that we receive, right? A fundamental principle of faith, right? And it's something that I've embodied, and it's taken me on a great adventure. And a couple other names up there. Lewis Howes, he runs this podcast called The School of Greatness. And on these podcasts, he has a bunch of different guests from a variety of different backgrounds who've experienced an array of adversities, right? And he gives you an in-depth, interview into what these people experienced, what got them to that point in their life, and how they got out of it. Another big one, Joe Dispenza. I'm big into like the faith and the spiritual and the energy stuff, and he's like a leader in this field, big into manifesting, big into mindset and your energy. This is something that I wasn't really familiar with at first, but as soon as I became exposed to it and learned more about it through him, it's now like a very instrumental part of my life. All right, Luke, you want to hit him with yours?
Yeah, I'll hit you with two. Hit you with two good ones. All right, so my first reference that I probably didn't realize was a reference was my boy David Goggins. Now, I'm sure some of you are familiar with David Goggins. If you're not, I can demonstrate kind of what he does, but he's basically just running. He's like, I just ran 200 miles today. I got a broken back, 3 broken fibula. What did you do? And he's like yelling at the camera. And for some reason, that really resonated with me because I'm like, you know what? I am tired today. I don't feel like doing anything, but all right, this guy's a beast. I can do a tenth of what he's doing, right? Okay, I think so. And so that guy was kind of pushing me, especially during COVID. This guy started blowing up. I'm like, this guy, all right, I kind of like this. My second is my girl, Kendra Scott. Now, what you guys have probably all been looking at the whole time, you're like, this guy's got some nice accessories. Like, yeah, he's got the cool little Apple Watch, but oh, dang, he's got like a nice little ring going and whatnot. But yeah, I got this pinky ring right here because Kendra Scott is one of the people that I look up to. I use her as a reference. So her background, basically, she started a hat company. And she was making these hats up until her late 20s. And it went nowhere. It went out of business. And you're like, okay, so she failed. But then she started making this custom handmade jewelry, one by one. You're thinking, oh, okay, so she started like your nice little own boutique jewelry place, got a little jewelry store. But as I'm sure some of you ladies are familiar with, Kendra Scott is in thousands of retail stores across the country. She's somebody she's worth almost $1 billion. Her company's worth over $1 billion, and she is kicking butt out there. And so I look at her story and I'm like, you know what? I don't have to be successful my first time around. I might experience some adversity. I might fail in the beginning. But if I'm persistent and I'm passionate about what I do, I'm going to succeed. And that's all it takes. I just know if I just have persistent action towards my goal, I'm going to succeed. And she's a great example of that.
Yeah, so you're...
Oh.
No. Yeah, so you're probably looking at this picture and you're like, what are these guys doing? But Luke and I, we aim to be references, right? We push the envelope a little bit. We see ourselves as, young and a little bit adventurous. So what do? We kind of, in New York City where we live, we have like this mobile pull-up bar and we go out in the streets and we dress up as Spider-Man. But the goal of it is we ask people as they walk by, like, what's your superpower? Having people highlight the one thing that they see as their strength and identify how they can use it to help others. All right, so that's what we're here doing today. It's just our way of spreading our message on the streets of New York. We post a lot of content online about it.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, doesn't matter. I just want to say, this is a great example of, we're doing nut stuff. We're working out on the streets, and they're like, why don't we wear Spider-Man costumes? Because why not? And some of you might be like, that's absolutely nuts. And you're right, it is absolutely nuts, for sure. And people all the time are walking by us and don't even give us a second of their time. But we know what we're doing is a good mission. And at the same time, we're out there, we're not afraid to take a risk, put ourselves out there on a limb. It's uncomfortable as hell. It's uncomfortable walking around with a portable pull-up bar through the streets with my Spidey suit on, about to go do some pull-ups, about to go talk to some people. But you know what? It gets us out of our comfort zone, and we have a good time doing it. And so it's anything that you're trying to do, and it's some sort of risk in your life, you're like, people are gonna judge me. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks, because at the end of the day, you're not as important in anybody else's mind as you think you are. So any risk that you wanna go and take, go for it. And don't worry about anybody else's judgment, because at the end of the day, all that matters is what you think about it. Are you happy with what you're doing? That's all that matters. And at the end of the day, if you're taking risks, you're going to be happy.
Exactly. So the handle, touch streets. And before we kind of close up here,
you guys can pull out the phones again. If you want to follow the guys.
We got the slide in a couple of minutes.
Oh, okay,
too,
couple minutes. Calm down, Virginia Tech. Jeez.
So you'll be wondering, what is touch streets? What is touch streets? We can go to the next slide. Yeah, so what is Touch Streets, right? It's what we call ourselves, what we call our mission. We don't see ourselves as a traditional company. We're not a nonprofit. We're something that we honestly think the world hasn't really seen before, right? We're very mission driven, and our goal is to help others, to help the world become a better place by helping each individual create positive change in their lives. That's our overall goal. Why did we create Touch Streets? We created because we talked about it before. Luke and I were pushed to points in our lives where change was necessary, but it doesn't have to be that way for you, right? We have implemented many changes in our lives, and we find great purpose and happiness and excitement in helping others do the same. And how did we succeed? You'll see that's in the past tense. Luke and I like to talk in the past tense about a lot of things because we like to speak it out there as if it already happened, because God and the universe will figure out a way to make it happen for you. But how are we going to make this, how are we going to succeed? Going on the streets of New York as Spider-Man and talking to people, talking to schools. We hope to one day open up our own elevation centers. We hope to implement our own like elevation program with the schools to work with you all on a more consistent basis. These are the things we have built out and are looking to implement into schools and into communities to not only just help individuals, but to help to elevate the mindset of entire groups of people. So this is how you can find us. Handles, touchstreets.com. Those are Luke and I's individual
Can they pull out their phones now? Is this the one?
Yeah, they can pull out their phones.
You guys, pull out the phones, please. You know, if you want to look, follow us on Touch Streets.
There's several ways to contact us.
If you want to follow us on the gram, you know, no pressure. No pressure.
There's several ways to contact us, and this is our email that we use for Touch Streets, WeTouchStreets@gmail.com. So if any of you are out there, you're like, you know what? I've been kind of going through X, Y, and Z. Maybe these guys can help us out a little bit. Luke and I are in the process of becoming certified life coaches to kind of get that backing and that, get that curriculum into us so that we truly know how to help other people. So feel free to reach out with any questions, any concerns, looking for any advice. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking to you. Not just to share a message and be gone. We want to be a resource you guys can tap into.
Guys, if you have any questions, we just want to say we greatly appreciate you giving us your time today. We hope that you got something positive out of this. And like John said, we're always here. So feel free to reach out to us. Don't be shy. You can follow me on the gram, DM me, whatever. I'll follow you back, even if it hurts my ratio a little bit, you know. But seriously, guys, when we say it, we really mean it. Like, we care about every single one of you as individuals. So feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to be resources for you. If you have any questions, please let us know. If not, Ms. Laura, you can take
before questions. And you should ask questions. That's what they're here for. So don't be hesitant to ask questions. But you were outlaying a concussion when I wanted to say this. So I'm going to say it. It gets me a little choked up, but Luke did go here. I don't know if he mentioned that. I don't think he mentioned it. And I didn't get a chance to mention it because he wasn't here. And give me a minute. And I do remember your high school girlfriend.
She was great.
Rachel.
She is great. She's
Rachel,
great.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. But he was a handful when he was here. We're talking honestly. The happiness and the blessings that you brought us completely outweighed whenever you were a handful. Running up and down the West Wing. That's why you can't run anymore.
Sorry, guys.
Because he run with the big hair.
Yeah, shocking. Big hair.
Sorry. But I will tell you this, in just thinking about him and his experience here, as many times as we say, put your tie on, those aren't school shoes. Unroll your skirt. Go get a new pair of stockings. Any handful that you have ever handed to myself, Mr. Fernandez, and Mrs. Byer, the happiness and joy that you have all brought us completely outweigh any of those things. And so if you take, I know, good thing. If you take nothing with you from today, nothing with you from this school, you're a blessing, just like this man over here. And John, you didn't go here, but you're tugging on my heartstrings, man. We have Jake back there, John and Michelle's brother.
Big Jake!
Woo! Also, my #1 public speaker, right, Jake?
And we got Michelle. We got our darling Michelle. Said such nice
You're a
things about
lucky
it.
woman to be surrounded by all these men. I would not mess with her.
Yeah, if anybody messes with her, they're done. So I don't have hair like that. I wish.
I'm going to hand it back over to these fine young gentlemen, and you should ask the questions that you might have. And again, without any concern of the perception that someone might have about your question. So ask away.
Hey, thank you.
Let me go out here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're all right, John. You're all right. Not as good as me. Guys, I know we threw a lot at you, but take a moment. If you have a question, there's no question is a stupid question. I mean, oh, that is a great question. That is a great question right there. I'll go back and show you why. Boom, boom. So, I'm sure you're familiar with the Spider-Man meme. There's not one of us, there's two. So one day, we're working out with the pull-up bar in Union Square in New York City. And we're like, man, it's a struggle to get people to come up to us. Like, I'm like, please, come on, answer questions. I want to talk. And people are like, so all of a sudden, this guy in a rat mask, you've probably seen him on TikTok. The dude comes crawling around, weird looking rat mask, and he's crawling everywhere. And we're like, what is this? But all of a sudden, 100 girls are like, oh my gosh, it's the TikTok rat. We're like, dude, are you kidding me? A freaking rat. Everybody wants to go up to a rat. What about us? So we're at the bus stop. Yep, the bus. The bus is great in New York City. Great transportation form. We're standing there. I'm like, John, what's something crazy that we could do? We're already nuts. We're working out in the street. We're already nuts. Why don't we throw on some Spidey suits? What could go wrong? I mean, we're already working out in the streets. So we started doing the Spidey suits, and we've actually gotten a lot of positive feedback on those. People are coming up to us like crazy. Oh my gosh, Spider-Man. This guy's like, oh my gosh, he's so dreamy. We don't want the bald Spider-Man. Whatever. Fine. I don't need to be the dreamy Spider-Man. But to answer your question, the meme is why. In a 5-minute answer, the meme. Any other questions? Great question, by the way. Go Air Force. Thank you for your service. We have any other questions? Come on, anything. I'm going to sit here. Ooh, what motivated us to do this? You want to answer one? I mean, I could go up the dome, but we both. Yeah, I'll hold it forever.
Yeah, so what really motivates us to do this, listen, I think Luke and I made it pretty clear. I don't know if it's a natural thing or whatever, but part of like our recovery from what we experienced, there's a great deal of healing that takes place when you take your experience and you take the pain that you felt, and when you've kind of learned how to navigate through it, there comes like a whole new, you learn a lot about yourself and sharing it with others. And when you have people reach out to you and say, you know what, like I resonated a lot with what you guys are saying. Can you guys help me with X, Y, and Z? Or because of what you said, I've decided to do X, Y, and Z. There's really no better feeling in the world. And it happens on a very regular basis. And I'm sure some of you out there might reach out to us after this and be like, you know what, like I really resonate with what you guys are talking about. I could use help with this, or I've decided to do this because of what you said. And that makes all this worthwhile. Okay, so that's essentially why we do it. Makes us feel good, but we know that we're leaving a positive footprint on the world.
Yep. And anything you guys want to ask us, like we said, it doesn't have to be here, but in general. No questions are stupid questions, so please reach out to us. It can even be, oh, what size Spidey suit did you get? I'm like, you're saying whatever. It doesn't matter. Just feel free to reach out to us.
Is it okay, or maybe too much to take too big of a bite to chew if you have a goal that's so big where even the micro goals that you set for it also have their own like WWHW formula, where just the micro goal alone takes months to get. So should you just focus on the micro goal, and then in the back of your mind, like you know that there's an end goal to it, or just forget about the end goal for a bit?
Yeah. So you're basically saying, if you couldn't hear him, you have this giant goal, you try to break it down, and you're breaking it down, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this step still seems like it's months out there, right? It takes months to attain. And so I would challenge you to go even deeper into that how. I mean, I don't know if you want to share what you're thinking about doing, but let's take something big, for example, something really.
Like, because we both want to be like Forbes 30 under 30, for example.
Right.
We're 24 right now, like we have 6 years, and there's a ton of layers to that. Like that's like a huge goal, right? So to get to that point, you know, like one of our goals is to become we want to become like national speakers. Like we want to have a national impact on the education system. Like I'm about to launch an app in New York City. Like I want that to blow up. But those are two different.
You have to be 21 or older, by the way, to download it.
Yeah,
so don't even try it.
Not relevant for you guys. But
bar app.
But those are two very different avenues that kind of are going on at the same time, and they each carry their own goals. So like what we talked about before, you want to break it down to a point that which you know that the actions you're taking today in this moment are going to get you to complete that sub goal, and accomplishing that sub goal is going to help you accomplish your overarching goal. You kind of just look at it from a baby step perspective. You know, if you're walking up a huge flight of stairs, like kind of just take it one step at a time. You know, if you keep taking the steps, you're going to get to the top. But you just, in your moment, you want to focus on that first, like what you're doing in the moment, you want to focus on that. But your motivation, like your drive, is going to come from knowing that taking these steps that might seem insignificant in the moment are going to get you to where you want to be in the long run.
Yeah, and it's going to just, like I was saying before, you never really know how you're going to get from point A to point B. Like all the time, I'm like, oh, if I do this, this, and this, it's going to get me here. And it constantly shifts. Like when I apply this to work, when I apply this to our other curriculars outside of work, all these different things. I think I know the route, but I don't. But at the end of the day, I know if I'm doing positive things, you know, I'm working in that general area. Let's say, you know, I want to start an app, but there's so many layers to that. It's like, okay, let me go learn about how to learn about coding, right? Like it can be as very simple as that. What are the best courses? Starting very small, it can go to the learning component. You can always learn more about something, right? So it's even, try to just break it down as much as you can and set smaller goals within that how, because you can really always ask yourself how. If it's 3 months out, then it's okay, how can I break that down even more? And you can keep how until you get to that point. You know what I mean? And if you're working on one and you want to work it with us, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and like setting a goal that big, right? You're kind of like that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of, you know, things need to go exactly how you want them to go in your mind for it to happen in the way that you foresee it happening. But you also want to leave yourself open to, you know, what life is going to kind of throw you along the way. Because you're going to get, one day, like, somewhere along your goal, you're going to get an email, you're going to get a call from somebody, or something's just going to, like, an opportunity is just going to present itself that you had no idea was going to come up. Like, just watch this stuff happen. Like, if you put good out there, good comes. Like, you're just going to get a knock on the door one day, and you'll be like, wow, like, this completely changes my trajectory. And you need to see those as opportunities to, you know, either pivot your course a little bit, but knowing you're still going to accomplish your long-term goal, or, you know, maybe being open to adjusting your long-term goal in its entirety as life kind of supplies you with different opportunities. Yep. Leave yourself open to it.
Yeah, just control what you can control, because you're not going to know how you're going to get there. But like John said, we try to do outreach. We reach out to hundreds of people, and sometimes we get nothing back. But then all of a sudden, it's somebody we never even got in contact with that said, oh, I heard this from this person, or this happened here. And it's never how you expect. So as long as you're taking those small actions on a daily basis, and you have that goal in mind, and you can just kind of keep breaking it down, you're going to get towards it.
Yeah, like prime example. You know, Luke and I have been, you know, how do we share our message with the community? Like, how do we get ourselves out there so schools maybe start reaching out to us? Like, how do we get some more coverage? And 2 days ago, Stephen Hayes back there, like, just reaches out to Luke.
Shout out Stephen Hayes, at Stephen Hayes on Twitter.
He just hits up Luke out of the blue, being like, oh, like, can we talk? Maybe we can do a story. And Luke's like, you know what? We're talking at Lourdes in 2 days from now. Why don't you come? Stuff like that will happen. And it's gonna be like, okay, what's going on here? Is somebody messing with me? But it will happen. Just watch. But leave yourself open to those type of opportunities, because when they happen, jump on them.
Definitely. Anything else?
Any other questions?
If life isn't that hard when you're starting to lose motivation, how do you get there?
If life isn't hard?
But like your motivation is like dying down. So you just say,
Well, if your motivation,
Great question.
Yeah, great question. So, number one, life was never designed to be easy. You should never be trying to make your life easy. That's just a never-ending battle in which you'll never win. Embrace its difficulty, because when you accomplish something that's difficult, that's where you get pleasure, that's where you get happiness from. But if you start to lose motivation, that's why it's very important to, it's hard to like describe it to somebody unless you like really you put yourself in a position to realize it yourself. But if you're experiencing a pain point in your life, right, and it's starting to shake you at the core, there's no other motivation that's going to outweigh that, and it's going to be something that nags you all the time. You're going to be looking yourself in the mirror. You're like, I had this realization. I'm not feeling really motivated. But when that pain becomes to a point where ignoring it is more painful than the pain itself, then you're going to be forced to take action. Now, you don't have to get to that point, but when you start to, that's why it's very important to have a significant why, what we're talking about. Like, why is this change necessary? Why do I want to accomplish this goal? Because if your why isn't strong enough, then that will happen. There will be points along your course like, I really don't feel like doing this, right? But your mind telling you don't feel like doing this, that is just honestly what it is. After doing a lot of research into this, that's just an evolutionary adaptation where your mind is programmed to force you to rest as much as possible. And the moment you realize that, it's just like, your mind just wants your body to rest, even though that rest might not be beneficial to you, you can just separate that voice from you. Like, you know what? Is that voice that's telling me, is it worth it? Is that serving me any use? Is it useful to me at all? Because if it isn't, stop listening to it. Stop listening to it. And just know, even if you don't accomplish the micro goal you had for today, what's just one little thing you can check off your list? Just knowing that you're taking at least a little step in the positive direction. Don't take a step backwards. Just even if you don't do anything for the day, just hold your ground and know, tomorrow I'm gonna get back on track. I'm gonna reevaluate my motivations and really figure out what it is that I do want. Because once you pinpoint that, the motivation will be there. Trust me.
Yeah, and I would also just say, if something's not working, then just try changing and doing different things. I think, like you said, life shouldn't be you should be trying to, do difficult things that challenge you. But I know what you mean. Life can be easy. I remember getting home after school and just, watching Netflix for 5 hours and just being like, all right, on to the next day, right? And just kind of living in that cycle. But you need to switch something in your patterns. So if you're constantly scrolling through Instagram and TikTok and then you're going on Netflix and you're just consuming all day, you're not controlling what you consume, that's going to dictate a lot of the direction that you're going into. So if you're trying to push yourself in the right direction, start looking towards those references that we were talking about before, finding people that took a similar route and just try to model them and just get some motivation from them. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff, the people, the places and things that you hang around and that you take in are going to drastically affect you. Of course you want to, you're responsible for your change and who you are, but at the end of the day, your surroundings affect you so much. So just try changing something in your surrounding. Maybe I set a time limit on my phone for my social media. So after 5 minutes, it goes off and I just scrolled for 5 minutes and didn't even realize I was on my phone. And if I turn that off, I can scroll for 20 minutes and say, I just went through somebody's entire Instagram since 2013. What just happened? So just little things like that. Just change your patterns. Any other questions? Going one. Oh.
So, was it difficult coming to terms with, let's say you had all these ideas going to college,
Yep.
and then none of them worked out? Was it difficult to change?
Yeah, definitely. It was very difficult. So, everything was, like I said, was going smoothly in high school. I go to college, and then all of a sudden, it's reality starts to hit, and all those old those patterns that you had are really started affecting you. And so, for sure, I'm getting in trouble with the law. I'm not seeing success in school. All these different things are happening, and it's that's when reality started to check in for me. And so that's why it kind of made it easy for us to change. It was all these things are just going downward, to put it lightly. So, it kind of just changed my whole perspective. But what we want you guys to take away is that it doesn't take all that stuff to try and start to make some positive change in your life, right? And it doesn't have to be so drastic. Don't look at it, like I said, our examples are not going to apply to every single one of you, right? But think about how you can move yourself in the positive direction. Of course.
How do you not allow regret to play into your mindset?
That's a good question. How do you not allow regret to play into your mindset? I would say for me, it's moving in the right direction and knowing that I'm moving in the right direction. I think if I was still stuck in that same place I was in and wallowing in it and saying, oh, why me? I'm the victim. This is happening. It's very easy to sit there and say, you know what, what have I done with my life? But you kind of just need to flip your mindset from, oh my gosh, I've wasted all this time, to, oh my gosh, I have so much time. It's every single one of you in this room. I mean, you guys are 17, 18 years old. You have so much time. You yourself, what are you, 30? 31? 25, I'm sorry, 25, excuse me. You have so much time. Instead of looking backwards, look forward. Look at the present and be grateful for what you have, because every single one of you here has a lot to be grateful for. And then also look towards the future and say, okay, I know if I start just taking positive little steps that I can eventually go and do those things that I want to do. And it's not going to be easy. It's never easy. I'm telling you, it's so much easier to just sit there, watch Netflix all day, and just try to not think about those things. But when those things resurface, it's going to hurt. And the only way to get out of there is to implement some change in your life.
Like if you're made some poor decisions in the past and now you're using those decisions or those consequences to fuel you going forward, like if you have an honest conversation with yourself and an honest evaluation, you're like, you know what, like this stuff happened to me, but it's gotten me where I am now. It's gotten me in the mindset of, you know, now I'm going to make these positive changes and you're on the right path. Then that completely like twists the mindset towards like your past. Like that's no longer regret. That's using your past as a learning experience, as fuel for like propelling yourself forward. It's basically how your view of what happens in the past or decisions you made, your perspective you hold on those events that fuel whether you are regretful or you're almost grateful for that it happened, because now it's kind of put you in the position you're in now.
If I didn't go through it, I would never know. You know, it's just you got to shift from the victim to, okay, this happened for a reason, and this was meant to be, because now it's going to push me in that direction that I need to go towards. You know, it's a mindset shift. Mindset shift. There we go. Any other questions? Great question. Do you hear it?
Yeah, so kind of now that we've found happiness and, you know, found a better daily routine, like what are those changes that we made compared to what we were doing before? Yeah, so I mean, honestly, the biggest thing for me after going through what I went through is now I have the like natural practice of simply just checking in with myself. Like every morning I wake up and every night before I go to bed, like I don't always journal, like I don't always meditate, but I simply ask myself, like, am I okay? Did I do stuff today, or am I going to do things today that I genuinely want to do? And when you do that over and over again, you start to be able to answer yourself honestly. And over time, like if I constantly find myself being like, you know what, like what I'm doing, it's like making me anxious, making me depressed, and I'm more in tune with that, then I'm able to, you know, nip it more quickly now. That's like my biggest difference from where I was before to what I am now. Is, you know, I'm not going to stand up here and be like, you know, I meditate 30 minutes every day. I wake up at 5 a.m. I go for a 6-mile run, like that.
Ice bath.
Yeah, like I jump in the ice bath every morning. Like no, that's sure there are people that do that, and that stuff is good, but it's like very drastic measures. The biggest thing that from night and day for me is simply the ability, you know, to be more self-aware and to be able to check in myself. Right? It's not necessarily like a whole different routine structure. It's just a little tool for myself that completely changes my perspective on what's going on and makes me feel I'm a lot more control of my decisions.
Yeah, and I would just say going towards that uncomfortable feeling, as cliche as that sounds, like especially in the beginning, it was terrible trying to make myself do things because I had a mindset of short-term gratification. What's the next fun thing I can do? Who can I go smoke with? Where can I go party? Who can I go try to get with? Like all those were constant thoughts in my mind. And then to go from that to a place of like making myself go into uncomfortable situations where I have to actually like be in my own thoughts, dig deep, and do things that I don't necessarily want to do in the moment. Those have by far made me more drastically happy. And over time, it gets easier. So if you have these poor habits in place, at first there's going to be a lot of friction. It's going to combat because your mind is used to getting that quick fix, right? It's like, all right, constant entertainment, constant consuming. But if you can slowly start to push against that, it will be a little uncomfortable at first, and it definitely was. I mean, I just remember when I was getting sober and I stopped smoking weed, I would wake up every single night and my whole entire bed would be sweating. And it wasn't pee, all right, it was sweat. My whole bed would be, like, the entire bed would be soaked for weeks straight. So just stuff like that. There was uncomfortable feelings, but I knew and I had faith that on the other side it was going to be better, and then it just gets easier. And then once you have those positive habits in place, you just are like, wow, I feel great throughout the whole day instead of just trying to find that feeling of being great, right? Like, it's like you're searching for that constant fun thing, that constant thing that's going to give you that little hit of like, all right, I feel fine, I feel in the moment. It's like you can kind of just be in that state at all times, you know? And I'm not saying I don't experience adversity, for sure. I go through tough times, but you know, it's nothing compared to what it was before. Oh, Coach! What's going on? I'm good. Oh, let me give this guy a hug quick. Great to see you. How are you?
I heard you were here and I had to stop in.
Yeah. This guy was very influential in my life. We had a lot of great memories. I think back on a lot of that stuff, especially those Manhasset trips. Those are great. Any more questions, anybody? How long did it take to develop these routines? It wasn't overnight. So I think, like I was saying before, the first thing for me was, right, I reached out and got help. I checked in with that person. They introduced me to AA. I started going to this place. You know, in your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, AA, you sit in a circle and it's like all these depressed people. And so at first, you're reluctant to go. But I went, I started doing that. I'm like, all right, this is cool. People talk about stuff and get things off their chest that they would never talk about out and openly, right? It's always like, oh, my life's so great. This is so amazing. But you sit down in a room and like, oh, I went through all this crap today. And it's like, oh, this is real. This is freaking cool. So I started doing that. And then I started implementing working out in my life. And that's slowly started to work its way in. And then it was like, okay, and now I need to start studying and working on that. So it was, I feel like it was like a stacking almost. It wasn't, all right, 8 to 12 o'clock from the time my bed gets off the pillow to the time it hits it, I'm grinding every second. Like, no, it definitely took a lot of time to get, okay, I'm going to put, an hour or two of productivity today. And I'm building on that over time. And it's never perfect. I don't ever have the most optimized day, but I'm telling you, I get 10 times more things done than I did before. And I think 10 times more done than a lot of other people do. And so it's going to come down to just building on it. It's a slow process, but just trust it and know that if I keep working at it, it might not be easy right now, it's going to pay off tenfold in the future. Oh, yeah, remember that freedom thing before? You guys still have a couple weeks of school, I'm sorry to say. But seriously, guys, thank you so much for today. If you have any questions, want to reach out to us, we're here for you. Thank you so much. It's great to come back to Lourdes. Thank you to the staff and administration for having us. It was great to be here.